Imagine believing the British. Communism. You like the weekend? Thank a union for that. Thank some communists for that, okay?
Palestinians left voluntarily in 1948 because Arab leaders told them to. This is one of the sillier talking points on the list. The argument people try to make is that Palestinians weren't actually ethnically cleansed. They were supposedly told to leave by leaders of the Arab armies fighting on their behalf in 1948.
It was the invading fucking Arab armies that told the Palestinians to leave and come back.
Dude, this is literally Ben Shapiro. It's like, this is straight up what Ben Shapiro lies about. What the fuck? This is straight up Nakba denial. I mean, he already did it before, but god damn, dude. It is wild that there are some people that are left in that community that still fucking unironically believe that they're progressive. Or even funnier than that, believe that they're actually pro-Palestine. That is insane.
When the war was over.
But this ignores the fact that Zionist plans to deliberately ethnically cleanse and replace the Palestinian population are well documented and were already underway before the Nakba. Even supposed voices of consciousness in the Zionist movement, like Burl Katz-Nelson, spoke of transferring the Palestinian population well before 1948. Keep in mind that the term transfer in this context is used euphemistically. As Palestinian historian Noor Mashallah points out, especially by figures like David Ben-Gurion, who used it as a substitute for expulsion. I mean, we could see the guy clear as day writing to his son saying that he's trying to expel the Arabs and take their place. Evil Danny DeVito over here wasn't that great at keeping it a secret. I'm going to really quickly read a few passages that refute this talking point. I could spend all day on it, but this video is already going to be insanely long, so I gotta speed things up. Shlomo Ben-Ami, who is not exactly an anti-Zionist in any capacity given that he's worked for the Israeli government, has refuted this narrative himself in his book, Scars of War, Wounds of Peace. It's not at all clear, as maintained by a conventional Israeli myth, that the Palestinian exodus was encouraged by the Arab states and by local leaders. Benny Morris found no evidence to show that either the leaders of the Arab states or the Mufti ordered or directly encouraged the mass exodus. Indeed, Morris found evidence to the effect that the local Arab leadership and militia commanders discouraged flight, and Arab radio stations issued calls to the Palestinians to stay put, and even to return to their homes if they had already left. True, there were more than a few cases where local Arab commanders ordered the evacuation of villages, but these seem to have been tactical decisions taken under very specific military conditions. They did not respond to an overall strategy either of the local Palestinians.
Also, what's really interesting about that is that, okay, let's say Arab commanders told the Palestinians to leave. Why did fucking Israel not let them return? They're civilians. Why has Israel not allowed them to return to this day? Like, what are you even talking about? Yeah, let's say there was a tactical retreat or whatever the fuck, Arab commanders were like, you have to leave your homes right now. And everyone was like, okay, I'm leaving my home. Okay, why can't they fucking return then? What do you mean? People don't understand, even throughout like fucking medieval times, like wars are waged, and then, but the civilians are supposed to be, I mean, not always, but civilians are supposed to be allowed to continue existing in the place that they were with just new rulership, new ownership. What are we talking about? Unless they take people as slaves, which has happened quite a bit as well. Yeah, you can't collect taxes from the fucking peasantry or even rebuild a new standing militia from the peasantry if you kill all the peasantry or you expel them.
Leaders or of the Arab states.
It was the invading fucking Arab armies that told the Palestinians to leave.
As Ilan Pappé explained, this myth, originally invented by the Israeli Foreign Ministry, was a way to dodge responsibility for the Palestinian right of return. At the time, the U.S. government, especially under John F. Kennedy, was pressuring Israel to address the refugee crisis caused by its ethnic cleansing campaigns. To deflect blame, Israel hired researchers and scholars to fabricate evidence suggesting that it was Arab leaders, not Israeli terror organizations, who forced Palestinians to flee. One such scholar was Moshe Moaz, whose work Ben-Gurion cited as proof beyond doubt that Palestinians left because the Arab leaders instructed them to. But even Moaz later admitted that his research wasn't about historical accuracy. He was just fulfilling a political assignment. In his book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, Pape further refutes this nonsense by writing, "Using primarily Israeli military archives, the new Israeli historians were able to confirm many cases of massive expulsions from villages and towns and revealed that the Jewish forces had committed a considerable number of atrocities, including massacres. The Israeli foundational myth about a voluntary Palestinian flight the moment the war started in response to a call by Arab leaders to make way for invading armies holds no water. It is a sheer fabrication that there were Jewish attempts, as Israeli textbooks still insist today, to persuade Palestinians to stay. As we have seen, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians had already been expelled by force before the war began, and tens of thousands more would be expelled in the first week of the war." See, in truth, Palestinians were victims of Israeli paramilitary.
I can't stress this enough. Why would they not be allowed to return? Why would the civilians not be allowed to return? Even if it was the Arab militaries that were like, oh, you have to leave now. Civilians are not a part of the warring faction. That's not how this works. Hello. I know this is very difficult for someone who's a defender of Israel to understand. Civilians, different than standing armies, different than any sort of like militant resistance. Civilians are civilians. Now, of course, I can think of one reason why you wouldn't want civilians to return. It's because you have demographic concerns. And the only reason why you would have demographic concerns is if you're a fucking Nazi, which is what Zionism is.
Organizations who carried out a premeditated ethnic cleansing campaign known as Plan Dalit, which entailed large-scale intimidation, laying siege to and bombarding villages and population centers, setting fire to homes, properties, and goods, expulsion, demolition, and finally, planting mines among the rubble to prevent any of the expelled inhabitants from returning. In David Ben-Gurion's own words, the prime objective of Plan Dalit was the cleansing of Palestine. Israel exists to keep Jews of all kinds safe. Okay, really quick, let's recap why Israel does not keep Jews safe and is most definitely not a place for Jews of all kinds. There were the false flag bombing campaigns in Iraq and Egypt that we spoke about earlier. Those not only put Jews directly in harm's way by literally bombing them, but were also carried out with the intention of increasing hostility toward Jews in Muslim-majority countries so they'd feel pressured to move to Israel, which many of them did not want to do. Avi Shlaim remarks on the irony of this in his interview with Novara Media, pointing out how Israel simultaneously claims to aspire to Jewish safety, yet was endangering Jews across the region.
Even if I knew for certain that not a single Iraqi Jew left Iraq to go to Israel because of the bombs, I would still think this is a real indictment of the state of Israel, because Israel was created to provide a safe haven for Jews, not to be harassing and threatening Jews in other countries.
Shlaim goes as far as to claim that Jews today are much less safe in Israel than they are elsewhere, and on top of that, Israel generates anti-Semitism, which harms all Jewish people, wherever they may be.
There's no question that Jews in Israel today are less safe than anywhere else in the world. But it's much, much worse than that. It's much worse than that because Israel generates anti-Semitism. Israel is responsible for the upsurge of hostility towards Jews everywhere.
It's common to hear people claim that Israel is the only place where Jews can be safe, but this is entirely untrue. My response to that claim would be, so safe that they need billions of US dollars for security reasons every year, mandatory conscription, bomb shelters, an Iron Dome, and more just to fight the people they perpetually oppress when those people inevitably retaliate? You think a Jewish dude in Brooklyn is in more danger than a Jewish dude in Israel? Give me a fucking break. And to be clear, it's unsafe not because of some barbarous sea of Arabs, but because Israel is an aggressor and oppressor in the region, and colonialism breeds violent resistance. Also, let's not forget about the aforementioned mistreatment of Mizrahi Jews. The transit camps, the Yemenite children affair, the exploited labor, the constant rhetoric about Jews from the MENA region being primitive and backward. Right from the jump, Israel was a project meant to serve white European Jews primarily. This accusation is corroborated by the way the Zionist project treated Jews from Ethiopia and Uganda. Ethiopian Jewish women were injected with contraceptives, some without their consent, others under coercion, with immigration to Israel and further healthcare made conditional on their compliance. The story of Ugandan Jewry is particularly interesting and upsetting. The Abu Yudaya, a community of black Ugandan Jews whose adherence to Judaism dates back over a century, have been the victims of frivolous obstacles and roadblocks when it comes to their attempts at migrating to Israel. Israel's
Pre-watched again.
that it doesn't even recognize the Abu Yudaya to be Jews at all.
Why?
This is quite strange given their 100 years of adherence to the Jewish faith. In stark contrast to the bureaucratic hurdles and, let's be frank, racism the Ugandan Jews faced, South African converts were able to move to Israel relatively smoothly.
Wait, one more. Russians. There's one other group. South African converts were easily able to come to Israel in the aftermath of the dissolution of the apartheid in South Africa. Very strange, by the way. My favorite, the people who were like, well, this apartheid is done. Let's go to the next one. Like dudes who are just consistent, you know? They're like, we have to. Yeah, I'm running away from the end of one apartheid and bouldering in the direction of another. So, I mean, that's great. That's got to be awesome for the people who are that invested. Also, there's one other group of people that were able to come to Israel without having any sort of matrilineal tracing of Jewish ancestry, and that was Russians. Now, you might be wondering why. Well, it goes back to the same fucking argument, which is Russians are white. That is what it is, baby.
See, when the South African apartheid ended, some white South Africans didn't want to live in a democratic society, so they made the decision to move to another apartheid regime, Israel. They converted to Judaism and successfully made the move with little pushback from the Israeli state. This Ugandan creator, who is apparently
not just Russians, white people from across the Soviet Union. Yeah, that's true. From all across the Soviet Union. It's so funny. They don't give a fuck, bro. White is right.
The many children of the late Ugandan dictator Idi Amin, made a quick video talking about the subject, and I'll link it below. The Balfour Declaration settles it. This is a bit more of a niche talking point, but some Zionists will invoke the authority of the British, specifically the Balfour Declaration of 1917, as though that grants the Zionist movement any actual form of legitimacy. The truth is, the British were making all sorts of contradictory promises back in the day. The Mahmoud Hussein correspondence of 1915 to 1916 saw the British promise to recognize Arab governance in the region post-World War I in exchange for the Sharif of Mecca launching a revolt against the Ottomans. This correspondence came before the Balfour Declaration, yet
there it is, boys. There it is. The fucking Palestinian betrayal. To be fair, this is not reflective of broader Palestinian society's opinions on this. And I think that for the most part, this is before the Balfour Declaration, for the record. Subject to the above modifications, Great Britain is prepared to recognize and support the independence of Arabs within the territories included in the limits and boundaries proposed by the Sheriff of Mecca. Great Britain will guarantee the holy place against all external aggression and will recognize the inviolability when the situation admits. Great Britain will give to the Arabs her advice and will assist them to establish what may appear to be the most suitable forms of government. Yeah. British people, British and French colonial occupation came to the MENA region because they recognized that if they were to take advantage of Arab revolts against the Ottoman occupation, it'd be much easier. Palestinians played a role in this as well. Silver Crow is coping, says, Ottoman Turks massacred us and treated us badly. Britain used this to trick us for support. It's just copium. It's all good. You know, look, I'm not going to hold a little L against you like that. Okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. Many Turks do, though. They're fucking weird about that shit.
launching a revolt against the Ottomans. This corresponds.
I'm just saying. Imagine believing the fucking British, dude. Imagine believing the British.
Came before the Balfour Declaration, yet it's not treated with any actual authoritative weight. Furthermore, if we're in the business of respecting the Balfour Declaration, Nur Mashala reminds us that the declaration affirms that the rights of non-Jews are to be respected. Why the cherry picking about which parts of the Balfour Declaration are important? At the end of the day, the Balfour Declaration was written and backed by notorious anti-Semites who wanted Jews out of their country so they could serve instead as...
And the only dude who was against it in the British Congress at the time was Parliament at the time was a Jewish Bundist.
regional allies in the Middle East.
What's his name, like Montague or something? I'm forgetting. He has like a cool ass fucking name.
This document shouldn't be treated with any real legitimacy.